There is power in a union.
That's Billy Bragg in Buffalo, New York, supporting Starbucks workers who are trying to unionize. Billy will be in New Zealand next year with shows in Christchurch and Auckland and a 3-night stand in Wellington.
Together we don't stand. There is power in a union.
I was shuffling through Buffalo between I was between Troy. I did a gig in Troy, which your viewers might not know is just like a suburb of Albany,
right?
In Troy, state capital. Yep, up the Hudson Valley. And we were driving from Troy to Toronto, hooking under Lake Ontario. And people at Starbucks in Boston, the union members there, realized that we will be passing by. So they invited me if I'd like to come along and play a few songs. And they organized a picket line where they're trying to get the union into Starbucks. And I stuck around and played some songs for them. It was the sort of thing Woody did all the time. And it's kind of, right. I always like doing that because, Woody Guthrie never did gigs like I do gigs. He never did a thing like I did in Troy the night before where he filled an auditorium, played songs from his most recent album, sold T-shirts. He never did any of that shit. He did that picket line stuff and he played in schools and he played in, fundraisers. So when I do those things, I think, well, this is me keeping the faith with the little guy.
There you go. I'd love to have a Woody Guthrie T-shirt from 1945. That'd be cool.
That would be incredible, wouldn't it? or what would it say on it? This T-shirt kills fascists.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Something like that. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Me being an American and I've lived in New Zealand for about since '94. They're very kind of they're suspicious of unions here. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that politics is quite similar in New Zealand and Australia as it is to the UK in terms of labour unions, Labour Party. When I toured America in the 80s, I often had to explain a little bit about where I was coming from with a song like Power in a Union and, find some local example of what I wanted to talk about so that I could riff off of that for the American audience. Well, I didn't have that problem in Australia and New Zealand. They kind of were aware of the context of what I was talking about when I was talking about the miners' strike,
right?
About the Labour Party, the Tories. So yeah, it's similar. Although I have to say, in the UK, we're facing a wave of strikes over here, and the public support for unions is getting stronger.
Well, that's good. That's a plus. Better late than never.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, talking about music, I think I read somewhere that you're quite the fan of the Carpenters and Karen Carpenter. Is that true?
Well, I did post about that the other weekend. I caught like, I think it was when I just come back from America from that trip you mentioned. Yep. It was one of those times when don't know where my body clock is, and I found flipping through the channels because I wasn't feeling tired. I found a documentary about Karen Carpenter, and it reminded me how much I know of their material,
right?
Which is a bit of a surprise to me. So I had a couple of days taking stuff back and forth to my lockup, just listening to nothing but the Carpenters, and it kind of bubbled up into a Facebook post of kind of like guilty pleasure type thing.
Well, definitely guilty. I mean, Top of the World. I was old enough to remember it on Top 40 radio back in the day. Hated the song, and I can sing the whole thing all the way through.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Because that was one of the questions. In this thing, the thing that set it off? There's a Guardian column that asks people, "What's the first record you ever bought? What do you listen to?" And one of them is, "What song do you strangely know all the words to?" And my answer to that was almost all of the Carpenters' first greatest hits album.
Yep.
Because that's what I've been listening to, and they're great songwriters. I mean, Rainy Days and Mondays is a brilliant song. I would give an arm and a leg to write something like that. Really, really beautiful.
I think my favorite was Yesterday Once More.
Oh, that's a great song. Yesterday Once More. And what's the one with the crazy guitar solo in it?
Superstar, is it? Or
no.
Goodbye to Love. Goodbye to Love.
Yeah, Goodbye to Love, and the mad guitar solo in that. It's
and
I think it's something about the timbre of Karen's voice as well, that low contralto that she has, that makes it really, really special. Not many people go there.
Right. Now, speaking of that, I had a recommendation for you. Are you familiar with Weiss Blood?
I know, but I did. I tell you, a friend of mine has been going on about her.
Very Karen Carpenter-ish. voice, although there are differences. Obviously, she's not Karen, and she has her own thing going. The album is amazing. It just came out like a couple of weeks ago, so highly recommend it.
Oh yeah.
So,
I'll check it out.
We should talk about you.
Me. Yeah, why not?
That's what we're here for. You're going to be here in New Zealand. I think the last time you were here was like 2018, and you did like a 3-night stand at here in Auckland at the Hollywood Avondale.
I did, yeah. That was the first time I really tried out the idea of what I'm going to be doing in Australia, mostly,
right?
Which is this sort of 3-night stand in a city, in one venue, where the first night I play my current touring set.
Yep.
You know, the set I would play if I visited your city. But the second night I only play songs from my first 3 albums, and then the third night I only play songs from my second 3 albums. So it's a kind of a retrospective thing, and it kind of came out of an experience when I did the Shine a Light tour, and they put me a show in Adelaide on a Monday night in a big pub called the Governor, and it was pissing with rain on a Monday night, and I actually hadn't done a solo electric show for a long time. I had to even rent a guitar because I didn't have an electric guitar. I had to rent a Telecaster, but they put it in there for me to give me something to do between Perth and Melbourne.
Right.
And I just kind of didn't really have a running order in my head. So when the audience started shouting them out, I started playing the songs, and after about an hour or so of doing this, I was enjoying it so much that I said to the audience, I don't know if I'm indulging you or you're indulging me here. But it kind of like set off the idea of maybe doing something like a retrospective set. And then I was asked to do 3 nights at the Horseshoe in Toronto, and Horseshoe Tavern, and that's what I did. I set it up that way, and then I finally came and did it at a proper gig. And that time when I came to Auckland. Right. It went a bit over the top though. I ended up doing I hadn't quite worked out how many songs to do. I did like a 23 song set or something.
Yes, I believe it was. Really. We reviewed it on my website, and
it was fun. But it had the unfortunate effect of making the audience so excited that they wouldn't go away, and I had to use a very technical move to get them to go home at the end, which I don't know if you remember on the last night what I did after I'd done 2 encores and they still wouldn't go home. Well, there's a way to bring an audience back to where they're like, oh, cool, that was great. Okay, thanks, good night. And bring them down to earth. I don't need to do it often, but it is very useful. I told a very long, convoluted joke with a stupid pun of a punchline. And by the end of that, and people realized what had happened, I was off stage, I was gone. And they couldn't get that, they can't then get back that energy. It's a horrible thing to do, but at some point you've got to go home. And so after you've done 3 encores, well, no, yeah, not quite, but it has to be kind of long, and I have to keep. You have to take them with you. You know, you have to take them with you, and eventually you come up with a really daft punchline, and you're off, and that's it.
I think you're doing this so I think you're doing it in Wellington, the 3-night thing. So I
am, yeah, because what has happened is that from that Auckland show, I then developed a really long year of doing that show. I did a UK tour, I did a European tour, I did American tour, and I was all ready to come to Australia and New Zealand to do the same in the spring of 2020. And of course, everything went down the tubes.
Yep.
So I've actually moved on from that format. I've written a new album. I've toured, in America. I've toured in Europe. I've toured the UK with that album. I'm not really in that mode. And the other shows that I'm doing that aren't in Christchurch will be current album shows.
Yep.
But the audience in New Zealand has always been very, very supportive of me. And having sold those shows in that format, I didn't feel it was right to cancel and then resell. I thought people got their tickets. If we postpone and if they're willing to hang on, and I think this will be the 4th, it's been postponed 3 times. So this is the 4th year they've had to hang on to their tickets. And I think that they deserve to see what they bought the ticket for. It's not right for me to turn around and say, oh, I'm past that. I've done that.
Yep.
I'm on to the next thing. They want to see the 3 nights.
Right.
So You know, that's what I'm doing in Australia. I'm doing the 3-night thing in Australia. There's no solo shows in there's a couple of festivals.
Right,
but
right.
basically I'm just doing, you know, and the thing about it, which is really nice, is you get to stay in one place for 5 nights, sleep in the same bed.
Oh, there you go.
And at my age,
Yeah,
that's a big plus, you know.
exactly.
Because, you know, in a place like Australia, not so much New Zealand, because you can pick it up, but you know, you can spend a week, 2 weeks in America, certainly fly, play, you know, at the end of it, you lose your voice. You don't know where you are. When you can slow things down and get more involved in where you are and what you're doing and see the place. And I much prefer that way of touring. Maybe it's my age, maybe it's just it's more copacetic to just the general idea of traveling around. So I'm quite looking forward to that, because I've only ever been in Wellington in and out, you know, to do a one show. So spend a little bit of time there.
Now, speaking of age, the songs that you're going to be doing on these, especially on these extended things, are 40 plus years old now. Have they aged well? Because they were very topical at the time, obviously.
They were.
And so are they? Do you look at them differently? Do you go, ooh, maybe not, or man, I was a genius when I wrote that?
No, I never think that. But some of them do still hit the mark, given the right circumstance. You can't just roll them out willy-nilly. You know, I don't play Between the Wars every night, but there are circumstances in which that really strikes a chord. And it's, you know, and I kind of deploy it. I stopped playing it in the UK because I started to worry that it was allowing people to feel nostalgic for Margaret Thatcher.
Right. You don't want that.
I don't want to encourage that. No. So I kind of retired it. But yeah, it comes, you know, something like Ideology, you can deploy that. Power and a Union works all the time.
Sure.
You know, that's a key song in my set.
Yep.
But the thing about old songs is, you know, This Land Is Your Land is 80 years old.
Yeah.
It still resonates with people. And, you know, they're only, you know, some of them that need tweaking. I tweak Great Leap Forward sometimes. You know, I put a little more contemporary reference in the outro, you know, when I'm going around the different things at the end.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm always aware, you know, I've tell you what I have done. I've updated the lyrics of Sexuality.
Oh, okay.
To on the grounds that in 2022, it's not a very radical idea for a straight guy like me to go and have a beer with a gay man.
Right. Yep.
Big deal.
I think I might have done it myself a few times.
Exactly. Of course we have. Of course we have.
Of course I have.
But you know, but now we find ourselves in a situation where the trans community, the transgender community, are on the front line, and they're the ones who could deal, I think, with a little bit of allyship from us, because that's what Sexuality was. It was a song of allyship to the gay and lesbian community at a time when they were, you know, legislated against by the UK government under incredible pressure because of the AIDS epidemic. So I actually a tiny little change. It's just in that first verse where it said, just because you're gay, I won't turn you away. If you stick around, I'm sure we can find some common ground. It now says, just because you're they, I won't turn you away. If you stick around, cool. I'm sure we can find the right pronouns. That's all, just a little tweak. But I think you need to do that. You have to recognize that, you know, it's a great song. I love playing it. People like it, but it was getting a bit rusty in its edge. You know, it needed sharpening up again. And with a little bit of, you know, things happened here in the UK and that made me think, oh, you know, really, I should be singing about that now. And that song can do this. And I've not had a single gay person say to me, "Oh, you've spoiled our song."
Right.
Most
no,
I
wouldn't think so.
Most of them said, "Oh, yeah, okay, I see what you're getting at there."
And like you say, things are happening. Like they just had this mass shooting, another one in the States, in an LBG, whatever, bar, club, nightclub, 5 people killed and all that. I mean, and obviously it wasn't an accident where it happened. So, and people were going, I wonder what the motive was.
On the eve of Transgender Day of Remembrance as well.
Right. Yeah.
And also when they were having a drag night, and as you probably aware, the Proud Boys and other right-wing organizations have been turning up at drag events armed to intimidate people. You know, I mean, this is part of an ongoing process. And in some ways, you know, the transgender community are right in the front line of the, not just the religious right, but the culture wars that we find ourselves increasingly mired in. And you know, for the same reasons that I wanted to be an ally to the gay and lesbian community in the 80s, is the same reason why I try now to be an ally to the transgender and non-binary communities in the present day. Obviously, it's a lot more vehement now because of social media. It's a lot more nasty, but still has to be done, because I feel I would not be being true to that song.
Right.
And to the principle that led me to be an ally, or try to be an ally to the gays and lesbians back then. If I sidestepped and said, well, you know, this has nothing to do with me, you know, this is all too complicated. And trust me, it really, really is complicated, very complicated, very nuanced. If I stepped away from it, I would feel I was betraying that principle that first brought me to support the gay and lesbian community.
Yeah. Now, your most recent album is The Million Things That Never Happened. And I'm curious, when you set about to decide that you need to make a new album, is it because you feel you have something to say, you need to address something, or is it time to make a new album? Are there different reasons that you make different albums?
Time is an element. That's definitely true. Time is an element. But really, with regard to this album, it was in the middle of lockdown, really, when the second lockdown came.
Right.
And that left me, the first lockdown, I kind of got to grips with putting stuff on the internet. In fact, I was more busy in the first lockdown than I've been for years. It was like having an album out again in the 1980s. I was doing stuff every day, you know.
Yeah. But
I realized that couldn't continue. So when the second lockdown came in, I was a bit like, whoa, you know, how long is this going to go on? I need to, you know, it knocked me sideways a bit. So I thought I need something to focus on. So I thought I really should try to make an album. And I intended in 2020 to try songs out in sound checks. That's how I make a record. I mess around with ideas in sound checks and tape it all, and then take it away and sort of woodshed it and work out from that how the album goes. But I hadn't had, because there was no gigs, I couldn't do that. So I literally had to start with a blank sheet of paper and sit down and write down a load of ideas and take it from there, which is an interesting way to do it. I've not done it that way before. And then I couldn't go to the studio because of the third lockdown. So I had to kind of send the demos and wait and see what the guys sent back to producers. But fortunately, I'd asked them to involve with me because I like their arranging ideas. So probably good that I wasn't there, because they went where they thought and they sent to me, and I was like, oh, actually, this is cool. Maybe if I'd been there, I'd have been frowning in the background and I'd have not put that fifth mellotron on the chorus or something. So it's probably worked well.
Yeah. So musically, do you still look at new music or look for new music? Do you kind of, are you interested in what's going on around?
I am. I mean, there's a guy in the UK called Jamie Webster.
Okay.
Who's a Liverpudlian, and he began playing at football grounds, at football fan parks. You know what a fan park is? Yeah. He started playing at fan parks with Liverpool when they went on tour.
Right.
And he kind of started writing about his experience as a working class guy. He was an electrician. That's what his job was. And he started playing these and started writing, not about football, but about his sense of belonging in Liverpool. He has this great song called My Place, which is really about, ostensibly it's about Liverpool, but it's really about wherever it is that you're from and what you love. And it finishes off by him singing repeatedly, my people, my city, my heart. And he's kind of now started, he's now recognized that the solidarity that he gets from football that he loves also applies in other places as well, because he turned up on the picket line for the Liverpool Dockers about a month or two ago, which was really, really great. And, you know, that for him to make that connection, I think is really amazing. He's a good working class lad, and he has an audience who realize what he's doing, because one of the things he does is he goes to his audience, da, 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 and they all chant, fuck the Tories, da, 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 da. Fuck the Tories. And I was with him at the weekend in Liverpool, and he played the M&S Bank Arena to 11,000 people. And they did that, 11,000 Liverpudlians chanting fuck the Tories. And the only other person who's filled that arena was another nice Liverpool lad, Paul McCartney.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, he's not that big outside of Liverpool. He's, you know, he's more playing theatres. I mean, Jamie, you know, he's not massive, but what he did at the weekend, and he invited me to come along and get up and sing with him a song of mine called "Never by the Sun," the chorus of which is "Scousers Never by the Sun." It's about the Liverpool people boycotting Rupert Murdoch's paper because of the lies they printed over the Hillsborough disaster.
Right.
And he invited me, he made that connection with what he's doing, with what I'm doing. So although he's not ideological like me, it's a much more about the politics of empathy and the politics of solidarity and social solidarity rather than emotional solidarity, rather than political solidarity. It's really, really interesting. So I was just amazed to be to hang out with him and to see what's going on.
Right. All right, we're getting close to our ending time. Just
yeah,
you're I think your next gig maybe in a couple of days in Swansea or something. Are you still touring with Paul Heaton, and is that what that
starts? It begins.
It begins.
Yeah. It's the first show on Swansea on Saturday night, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Paul's audience has always been a really good audience for me. I did some what we call sheds, gigs in a park with him a couple of years back, and we had a great time. And we come from a similar place, me and Paul. You know, the House Martins were on Go Dis with me. I've always admired his songwriting. He's got that knack of finding an interesting perspective on relationships, and there's politics in there as well. So we're a good match.
Cool. All right. Well, can't wait to see you when you get back down here to New Zealand.
I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, you know, I felt really frustrated about the gigs getting cancelled. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to, from the time I've got over there, I'll be able to get around a little bit and maybe reconnect with the audience down there. It seems like a long time since I was last there. It's not really a long time, but it's a long time in Bragg years. Because I try
it's a long time, and it feels long in everybody's years because of what happened in the interim. I mean, the other day, the Killers came to Auckland. They'd been here, you know, but they did a big gig at the big stadium that holds 12,000 people. They decided at the last minute to do another gig the same night in like a smaller, like 2,000 or just. And everybody went to both of them. It was amazing.
Of course, because we just love playing. You know, that's the great thing about coming back. We love playing. When I came last year, my UK tour, the first show was in a little bar in Dundee, which was fine. You know, it's about 500, 600, really nice. But the second one was Saturday night in the Glasgow Barrowlands. And I don't know if it was me, it was pleased to be back, or the audience maybe had not been to a gig either, but it was an incredible night. It really was. I played 7 songs more than I was supposed to. I had that Auckland vibe. I didn't have to tell them the stupid joke to send them. I didn't quite have to do that, but it was one of those nights where you come off like, I didn't know whether I'd done the best gig of, this decade, or hosted the biggest super spreader event in Glasgow, because it was just at the beginning, you know, people were still wearing masks and stuff.
Right.
But fortunately, I managed to do a tour in between the end of the Alpha strain and the beginning of the Omega. Somehow I just managed to
squeeze it in,
put it in there. So please tell your listeners and your readers that I've had my most recent vaccination.
Okay.
I've had my flu jab.
You're all vaxxed and ready to go.
All vaxxed. I've got it when I get to customs. I've got it on my phone, my NHS app. So I'm really looking forward to getting there. I'm bringing a keyboard player. It's me and a keyboard player, and that's worked really well with the new stuff and with the old stuff, touring around the UK. So I'm really confident that I'm going to have a great time. You know, bringing my weird perspective of the world to the Kiwis.
Excellent. We're looking forward to it. Thank you so much for spending time talking to me.
Not at all. Thank you. And let's see you in the new year.
You will indeed. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot, Marty. Cheers. Bye-bye.